The National Desk, America's News, now.
It is inconceivable that anyone who reads this email could conclude that I was trying to cover up the possibility of a lab leak.
The man synonymous to COVID-19, Dr. Fauci, back on Capitol Hill, inside the back and forth on how it all began. New warnings from the DEA over fentanyl, what parents can look out for now that school is ending. And then the first polls after Donald Trump's conviction are in. Did the voice of 12 jurors change the minds of voters around the country? This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thank you for joining us. And right now, severe weather is threatening cities just north of Dallas, Texas, to Shreveport, Louisiana, all the way north to Jefferson City in Missouri. In Wisconsin, Madison and Milwaukee are also in line for storms by the Great Lakes. Meantime, the rest of this week, the National Weather Service is warning of a heat dome to cover the southern half of the United States. As many as 34 temperature records could fall by the end of the week. Parts of California, Arizona, and Texas could have feels-like temps of more than 110 degrees. 2 New York City police officers were released from the hospital today after being shot early this morning, one of whom was saved by his uniform.
This is a bullet hole. Because of this vest, a young police officer is going home.
Police say the officers were responding to a robbery call when they encountered and were shot at by a man driving the wrong way on a moped. The suspect, a 19-year-old illegal migrant from Venezuela, remains hospitalized after being shot in the ankle. Police are now seeking help from the public to find the people behind what appeared to be a drive-by shooting at an outdoor street party in Akron, Ohio over the weekend. At least one person died in the shooting and another 25 were injured. There have been no arrests and no suspects have been identified yet. At least 2 people of the 26 shot are still in critical condition. Police have found 2 handguns and more than 35 shell casings, some of which are from an assault-style weapon during their investigation. The total reward for information leading to an arrest of one or more is set at $22,500. Today, Hennepin County Attorney Amari Marati explained her decision to drop murder and manslaughter charges against a white Minnesota State trooper who shot and killed a black driver as he tried to pull away from a traffic stop last July. Last month, Trooper Ryan Londrigan pleaded not guilty in the death of Ricky Cobb II. Moriarty said new pieces of evidence make it impossible for the state to prove Londrigan's actions were not an authorized use of force. Specifically, Trooper Ryan Londrigan's attorney said Londrigan planned to testify. He believed Cobb was reaching for his gun before he shot him. Furthermore, Moriarty said she didn't want the public to believe the system didn't work if Londrigan was acquitted. Developing now, firefighters in California are still battling a wildfire near San Francisco that grew to more than 14,000 acres. Officials say the Corral fire is now 75% contained after it started Saturday afternoon near the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory site. The lab said the facility is not at risk from the fire. The fire's cause is under investigation. Crews in Atlanta are still working to repair several broken water mains that have left some residents without power. The mayor declared a state of emergency after the issues began on Friday. Some of the leaks were fixed, but others emerged. Some people were still under boil water advisories today. Still not clear when the water will be turned back on, but Mayor Andre Dickens said crews have been working nonstop.
We are laser focused on this problem, and my administration understands how critical water is for our lifeline in this city.
Back in the national spotlight again, Dr. Anthony Fauci fielded questions on everything from masking to how COVID originated while on Capitol Hill today. As national correspondent Matt Gelka tells us, the combative hearing may not have changed many minds on either side of the aisle.
Dr. Anthony Fauci appearing publicly in front of Congress for the first time since leaving government at the end of 2022.
I do.
House Republicans put the heat on him right away.
This 6-foot rule crippled businesses. It allowed students to stay at home and not learn. Americans suffered.
Fauci is both revered and hated for being the face of the U.S.'s coronavirus response. While many Democrats celebrate his guidance through the pandemic that killed more than 1 million Americans, Republicans questioned his office's transparency.
The concern is that as the science became available, there wasn't like oh, maybe we should consider the lab leak theory. Oh, maybe we should consider natural immunity. We never heard this messaging coming from you or from anyone else.
Chief concerns include the science behind social distancing guidelines and whether or not grant funding from the National Institutes of Health contributed to the development of the virus in a Wuhan, China lab. Fauci dismissed the idea that he suppressed the lab leak theory through grant money.
The accusation being circulated that I influenced these scientists to change their minds by bribing them with millions of dollars in grant money is absolutely false and simply preposterous.
The most explosive exchange came with Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Where you confess that you made up the COVID rules, including
I didn't hear what you
6
said.
feet social distancing and masking of children.
I never said I made anything up.
Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes.
She claims Fauci deserves prison time.
All the horrors that this country lived through during COVID, Fauci belongs in prison. He should be tried for mass murder, and he should be tried for crimes against humanity.
To Democrats, the hearing brought them no closer to COVID's origins.
This hearing demonstrated that he's being held accountable, but they have no evidence he did anything wrong.
And while he defended COVID vaccines, Dr. Fauci said for future pandemics, health officials would have to weigh the, quote, cost-benefit analysis of vaccine mandates to potentially avoid vaccine hesitancy. He didn't take questions as he left the hearing. Didi?
Matt, this same committee grilled a former advisor of Dr. Fauci 2 weeks ago and accused him of potentially covering up information and deleting messages. What did Fauci say about that?
Well, he tried to distance himself from Dr. David Morenz, who was grilled about potentially skirting public records laws and doing government business on private emails. Fauci said Morenz wasn't that close to him, worked in a different building, and wasn't involved in policy or other major issues. Still, Republicans repeatedly hammered him on whether or not there was a cover-up while he was in government. Didi?
Live from Washington, D.C., Matt Gelka, thank you. A jury of 12 plus 4 alternates is seated in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial. Opening statements kick off tomorrow. Hunter Biden is accused of buying and possessing a firearm in 2018 while using illegal drugs, which is a violation of federal law. The 54-year-old is also accused of lying on a form he submitted during the purchase about his drug use. He has pleaded not guilty. First Lady Joe Biden appeared in court this morning to show support for her son. Today is also Joe Biden's 73rd birthday. President Biden says he's not commenting on his son's criminal trial. In a statement, Biden says, quote, "I am the president, but I am also a dad. Jill and I love our son, and we are so proud of the man he is today." Suspected serial killer Rex Heuermann is set to appear in court Thursday on a new indictment that charges him with a 5th murder, according to a report. This comes just weeks after authorities searched Heuermann's New York home a second time. Heuermann was arrested in July and accused of murdering at least 4 women and dumping their bodies in Gilgo Beach, New York. Someone convicted of a sex crime against a child in Louisiana could soon have to be surgically castrated on top of going to prison. Lawmakers just approved a bill that would apply to certain crimes like rape and incest against children under 13. It's a step beyond the chemical castration currently allowed in Louisiana and some other states. The governor still needs to approve the bill. A new warning from the DEA for parents about fentanyl exposure to their children as school is about to be out for summer. With many states nearing seizure records, the National Desk's Angela Brown tells us what they say you need to do this summer to protect your children.
On the last day of May, the DEA Rocky Mountain Field Office sent out this alert right here. The region on pace to break the fentanyl pill seizure record set just last year, saying, quote, "As we head into summer and kids are out of school, let's not fail to continue to educate our family and friends on the dangers of fentanyl." Amara Durham, founder of Urgent Care Mental Health, says everyone needs to know this.
Do not take unsolicited medications. Do not use street drugs. the risk is so high.
The DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division is sending out this alert because of numbers like this. In Colorado, nearly 1.8 million fentanyl pills have been seized in fiscal year 2024. With 4 months still remaining in the year, the fiscal year, Colorado could break last year's record. In Utah, more than 600,000 fentanyl pills seized to date. Last year's record, over 664,000. In Montana, more than 40,000 fentanyl pills seized to date. Last year's record, just over 106,000. In Wyoming, nearly 4,000 fentanyl pills seized to date. Last year's record, 23,700. DEA lab testing has shown 7 out of 10 fentanyl pills contain a potential lethal dose.
I think people need to know that even a microscopic amount of fentanyl can be deadly.
In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Coming up, what's in an executive order President Biden could sign to address the border crisis and why those calling for it now dismiss it. Then how Donald Trump's criminal conviction is swaying voters' opinions according to new polls. And later on, how new legislation could help improve air travel in what's expected to be a busy summer season. We'll be right back. As we come back on air, here's a live look over the White House this afternoon, where tomorrow we are expecting a major announcement from President Biden on a big change at the southern border. It all comes as voters have repeatedly said it's an issue they care about the most, but on which Congress fails to act. Here's national correspondent Christine Frizzell.
After multiple failed attempts in Congress,
the motion is not agreed to.
And months of Republicans encouraging to act unilaterally.
He opened the border, and he can close the border.
President Joe Biden is set to sign an executive order to try to stem the flow of migrants at the border, using Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which gives the president authority, when found to be detrimental to the interests of the United States, to suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants. The number of border encounters has decreased lately, but reached a record-breaking 3.2 million in fiscal year 2023, with concerns those allowed to remain in the United States are a threat to safety. The suspect accused in shooting and wounding 2 New York City police officers is a Venezuelan migrant who had been staying at a migrant shelter in the area. And despite writing this letter in December, urging the president to take executive actions to stem the tide of illegal immigration, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is now changing his tune.
It's too little, too late. The only reason he's doing that is because the polls say that it's the biggest issue in America.
Former President Donald Trump has leaned in on the issue, recently vowing to launch a mass deportation program using local police and the National Guard if he becomes president again. As Democrats argue, Republicans don't actually want Biden to fix the problem.
It is frustrating for me to see individuals playing politics with people's lives and our law enforcement and our security needs. It's time to call it out for what it is.
President Biden is expected to face legal challenges to his executive order. Former President Trump issued a very similar measure back in 2018, imposing tough new asylum restrictions, and it was blocked by a federal judge. I'm Christine Frizzell for the National Desk.
Despite being convicted, Donald Trump still leads his presidential rivals in the first polls after the verdict on Thursday. New polling from HarrisX has Trump beating Biden if the election were held today. Trump got 43% and Biden got 41% when independent and third-party candidates were included. The same poll also shows 51% of voters from all parties think the prosecutions of Trump are politically motivated. Although, according to a new ABC News Ipsos poll, nearly half of voters believe Donald Trump should drop out of the race. As you might expect, the numbers vary widely based on political affiliation. 79% of Democrats say Trump should drop out. 16% of Republicans say he should. In an election that could sway on independents, more than half say Trump should suspend his campaign. And Trump is now on TikTok, a surprising move for the presumptive Republican nominee. As president, Trump tried to ban the social media app by executive order over distrust of its Chinese owner. Trump's first post quickly gained more than 2 million likes. President Biden joined TikTok in February, then signed a bill in April to force TikTok's owner to divest within a year or be banned. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says reports that Israel has agreed to a ceasefire with Hamas are not true. On Friday, President Biden outlined a three-tiered plan he said was offered by the Israelis that could end the war in exchange for the release of all living hostages, something the State Department maintains to be true.
We are completely confident it was an Israeli proposal. Obviously, it was a proposal that they developed in consultation with the United States and Qatar and Egypt, the three countries that have played the mediating role throughout this process, but this was ultimately an Israeli proposal. In terms of where it stands, it was submitted to Hamas on Thursday night. We have yet to hear a response.
Netanyahu told the Israeli Knesset this morning that retrieving hostages is only one of Israel's war objectives. In a statement, the Office for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote, Israel's conditions for ending the war have not changed. The destruction of Hamas military and governing capabilities, the freeing of all hostages, and ensuring that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel. This, as the IDF announced they have confirmed the death of 4 hostages taken on October 7th, identified Amiram Cooper, Haim Perry, Yoram Metzger, and Nadav Popplewell. The IDF estimated they were killed months ago in the city of Khan Yunis. The Israelis did not offer evidence of how they came to the conclusion, nor did they say when the 4 were killed or by whom. Their bodies are still being held by Hamas. Certain cucumbers are recalled because of possible salmonella contamination. Fresh Start Produce Sales shipped them in bulk from May 17th to May 21st to wholesalers and distributors in 14 states. The company said it asked its customers to stop selling the cucumbers. If you bought any, you can check with the store to see if they were included in the recall. In a little more than a half an hour, Speaker Mike Johnson will swear in California Republican Congressman Vince Fong. Fong won a special election last week to finish the term of former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy, who resigned at the end of last year after being removed as Speaker last September. Once sworn in, Fong will give Republicans a slim 5-vote lead on the House side with 4 other vacancies. Meantime, Texas Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee said in a post on X today she has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Congresswoman Lee wrote, I'm confident that my doctors have developed the best possible plan to target my specific disease. The road ahead will not be easy, but I stand in faith that God will strengthen me. June is National Cancer Survivors Month, and a young breast cancer survivor is sharing her story of hope today. She tells medical reporter Liz Bonas, if you have something suspicious going on with your health, don't delay getting it checked out.
Hey there, everybody. This is Gabby Thomas. She was diagnosed with breast cancer this past year at the age of 21. That is long before traditional screening is ever recommended.
Well, I found a lump in the shower like a while ago, and then I just kind of pushed it off because I didn't expect anything.
At the time, Gabby was a busy university student majoring in health science. But finally, last fall, she says during Breast Cancer Awareness Month,
I just decided to go get it looked at, and then I had to go through all the biopsy and all that and find out it actually was cancer.
Eventually, Dr. Matthew Kurian became one of Gabby's lead medical oncologists.
Probably one of the youngest patients that I've ever had with breast cancer at 22.
His approach, unique to Gabby.
The term that we use nowadays in medical oncology is called precision medicine. And I think that nowadays we are trying to analyze people's cancer at a molecular level and trying to understand what makes it tick.
By testing Gabby's own tumor DNA, a precise formula of chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation has given Gabby's team full confidence in her personal prescription for a long, healthy future, where then
We can treat it, and we can control it, we can cure it.
Gabby is just about finished with chemo.
Next Friday will be my last one.
And already, she says, she's planning for that healthy future.
I'm actually thinking about doing clinical research for oncology because of it all.
Gabby says if even one person hears this story and perhaps finds a lump and has it checked out at an early age, sharing her story will be worthwhile to save a life. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Important message. Coming up next year on the National Desk, more families are affected by hunger during the summer. How one food bank is able to feed millions of people in 2 states. We're back in 90 seconds. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America. With a busy summer travel season ahead, legislation approved by Congress could help improve air travelers' experiences. The $105 billion bill would guarantee certain protections like refunds for flights that are delayed by at least a few hours. Washington Senator Maria Cantwell spearheaded the bill after hearing the story about a high school boys basketball team that had to sleep on the floor at an airport leading up to Christmas in 2022 because of flight disruptions.
Consumers need clear communication. They need the options communicated after them so that they can make their best travel plans.
Step inside the Oregon Food Bank anytime, and you'll see workers and volunteers hard at work, sorting food donations and getting them ready to head out the door. Natalie Kaya now works there after using the food bank's life-saving resources to feed herself and her 4 kids.
Living that experience of knowing how overwhelming it can be to be unsure about what kind of food or what food I'm going to be able to feed my kids with really drives me with what I do every single day for Oregon Food Bank.
This warehouse is where it all happens. Workers and volunteers sort through hundreds of thousands of pounds of food every day. They send that food out to 1,400 sites across 2 states. Those sites just last year saw almost 2 million visits.
We are 2 days into Pride Month, a month that encourages the LGBTQ+ community and allies to be proud of who they are. But just a few days ago, a pride flag and pole were stolen from outside a Subway in Coloma, despite having multiple cameras in the area. Jordan Lynch is the owner of the Subway. Lynch says this is the 3rd stolen pride flag from the building. He says stealing the flag doesn't really get under his skin, and he will just keep coming back stronger.
All right, well, we'll just fight this by going even bigger. So now we've got pride pins like on our hat and our shirts. We've got signs on the door, stickers on the door. We'll get a new flag every single time. Does not really bother me.
Coming up next year on the National Desk, Coke is still the most popular soda brand in the country, but Pepsi is no longer number 2. Which drink has stolen its runner-up spot? Right after this. Dr. Pepper, now the number 2 soda brand in the country, surpassing Pepsi. That's according to market share data from Beverage Digest for 2023. Coke is still the most popular by a pretty wide margin. Coke got around 19% of the market, well ahead of both Dr. Pepper and Pepsi, which got 8.3%, with Dr. Pepper slightly ahead. Sprite and Diet Coke were not far behind. Sounds pretty good right now on such a hot day like today. That's going to do it for us tonight for this edition of the National Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for a live update of the severe weather nationwide and more coverage on America's top stories. I'm Dee Dee Gatton here in Washington. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tonight.